So today we're going to take a look at some new arrivals I've had recently here at Koi Wholesale. This time of year we're buying an increasingly large number of tosai from particular breeders where competition levels across the globe are so high for their fish that we're tending to find we have to buy them earlier. We're planning some of this, months and months in advance of actually getting the fish. It's incredibly competitive. It's only at some of the bigger breeders, some of the bigger bloodlines. In this case today, we're looking at some Hi Utsuri from Shinoda. Definitely the market leader, the biggest brand in Hi Utsuri, known for the jumbo size that they can achieve and the prizes that they win at koi shows in Japan on a regular basis. These fish arrived last week. They've not actually been in the country a week yet. They are roughly only 4 to 5 months old, so it's a very raw age to have them arriving in the country. We've got a lot to do with these yet. We'll be raising these right through until approximately this time next year when they'll get harvested. So yeah, they're going to be great fun. The plan is to track the progress all throughout the year over the next 12 months. So during each selection, we'll keep you up to date with what we've been doing as well, routine-wise. You'll get to see the results, and I'll also keep you in the loop of what we've been doing to achieve those results in particular. Now, onto the breeder himself, Shinoda. He's known for Deutsch Gosanki and Hi Utsuri. That's the primary production at the farm. In recent years, the Hi Utsuri seems to have been the most popular. He's got a stunning collection in Japan that they achieve sizes, 90 cm, getting on for a metre, I'm sure, now. This is pretty much what sells the dream to everybody. They are incredibly fast growing. The bodies are superb. The belly level that they achieve is incredible. And to be honest, it's been the best parts of nearly probably 15, 16 years since I've actually last had these Hi Utsuri to actually have a go with. So let's say pretty young. There's still a lot to do with these. They won't have been out of the mud pond all that long before they've been shipped. So they're currently in quarantine. We've got that to contend. Once we've gotten through that, or part of that process, we need to expose them to sleeping disease. So we've got to get them over that part. You're probably not sure, that might be the first time you've heard of that. We'll probably touch upon that at some point in another video. But for now, we're going to focus on the fish, what we've currently got in front of us, and what the plans are moving forward. So I think one of the first things to look at when we're growing a batch of fish like this is the size differential, because that is incredibly important. Now, if we take a look in this bowl already, you're going to see a vast amount of size differential, what's in there. We've got fish as low as 6 to 7 centimetres, and as big as 14 to 15 centimetres in the pond. Now, this is a huge problem in a raising environment, especially in a competitive one such as this. The 3,500 gallon pond has got 1,000 pieces in altogether, so that's our starting point. Now, once the fish are cleared quarantine, we're going to probably do the first selection, so that'll be about 5 to 6 weeks after they actually arrive with us. One of the main key areas of that first selection is going to be splitting the size out. So during the quarantine period, the fish will grow. They'll put on quite a bit of body weight. We'll start to work on the colour as well. But what we're hoping for is that, potentially some of the smaller fish will catch up to the average size. That's more than possible. The bigger fish will dominate. There's no two ways about that. And that's where the concern comes in. Now, at the first selection, I will be removing all of those fish that exceed the average size by a substantial amount. So at the end of quarantine, I expect the average size to be about 12 to 14 centimetres. We're probably going to have some by that time. The bigger ones probably getting on for 18 centimetres, I should imagine. They are dominant at feeding time. It's the reason they get so big. And in this environment, they need to come away. Otherwise, they are going to hold the other batch back. It has a big impact, probably more than you can imagine. They need to go. It's plain and simple. So they'll get either sold on or moved to a different pond with fish, similar in size to what they are. On the other end of the scale, we're going to have the smaller fish, which, like I say, we're hoping some will catch up to the average size. That is possible, but there will be a percentage of those that remain runts, if you like. again, they'll have to come away because they're just simply not going to compete with the pack, and they're just going to deteriorate. So it's crucial that we get those fish gone. If we can just take a closer look, you'll see some of the. It's got one of the really small pieces here. Looks like it's got a nice pattern sat there, but we'll have to see what that does. At the other end of the scale, these bigger ones, just huge in comparison, and those fish just cannot stay. They'll just cause too much trouble and affect the growth of all the others. So then we can see the sort of mid-pack, the mid-size at the minute sitting about 10 to 12 cm. So they're going to be the main sort of focus of fish that will be kept at the first selection. So while the next point to sort of consider here is the coloration. Now you're probably looking at this, you know, vexed that these are Hi Utsuri. Please remember they're only 4 to 5 months old. They do actually look more like a Koi Utsuri at the minute. That's perfectly normal given the age of these fish. They'll have had no exposure to any colour foods thus far, which it plays a huge part in bringing the pigmentation levels up. Now, colour food, when we're using colour food, I think there's a misconception that it's you know, creating an artificial colour. That's really not the case. Without the use of colour food, we could never get koi to 100% sort of pigmentation level, if you like. Naturally on their own, they'll just never do it, or the amount of time it would take to get the beni to its maximum level, you'd probably find the sumi was already deteriorating. So it's quite a fascinating point. Colour food is essential in raising the colour levels up. So this very sort of orangey yellow colour you see at the minute, by this time next year, in 12 months time, will be a very deep, intense red, that I can assure you. So yeah, not a reason to reject them when they're young. It's just a natural part of the process happening. Something else that we'll look for, I've just seen one obviously during the selection process, is any deformed fish. We can actually see this one already. That comes through. It's got a severe twist around mid-body, quite a big bend. So fish like that will have to be rejected as well, just to make way for those that aren't and are going to fly. So another point really here to make, these come from a pure Hi Utsuri lineage. One of the reasons Shinoda is so well renowned. The sumi patterns with Hi Utsuri rarely change. So even now at this early stage, we're primarily looking at the pattern these fish will have for the rest of their life. It's just that with size and body volume, things will stretch and look slightly different, but the actual layout of the sumi won't change all that much. So if we look at something like this lively little one, that pattern that we're seeing right there is pretty much the finished article. The sumi will thicken, yes, but the actual pattern itself won't change. Quite an exciting little piece, that one. Whereas again, fish like this, it's always going to stay relatively heavy. That's one where size will pull it out and stretch it out a bit, so there will become more beni and it'll be a bit more prominent, but that's always going to be a heavier patterned fish. So there's not really many cases with Shinoda Hi Utsuri in particular where you're going to get sumi developing up from somewhere where you don't expect to see it. Not saying it can't happen, but very rare, and the sort of selection that I'll do will be based on the pattern I see in front of me on the day, basically. So yeah, they're going to be interesting to follow, that's for sure. So there you've seen an overview of what I'm seeing today, what's in the pond. Next steps, obviously we're going to get on with completing quarantine first of all. Now during that time, my plan is to feed these on 100% colour food. I think that's essential to start pulling up the pigmentation. We need to start seeing what's there so I can judge the consistency of the colour a little bit more as well. It's quite tough at the minute. So yeah, for most of the quarantine, they'll be on 100% colour food. It'll be sake akari colour that I'm using, so it's pretty aggressive. but also good for gaining body volume as well. It's a very complete food with the added benefit of really pushing up the colour. The water's currently at 24 degrees. These are going to be fed approximately every 2 hours, just on small amounts initially, and gradually over time we'll build that up as we do. Prior to the selection, then we'll wean the feeding down to a point where we stop that. We'll carry out the selection. At that point, again, we'll get the camera back out and see what the progress is, see how they've come on, and chat about next steps from there on in. So thanks for watching. Once again, if you're liking the content, please hit the subscribe button to get updates whenever we've got something new available.